Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk him off. Chris Taylor.
Hi, everyone, and welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, which is, of course, part of the medium-large sports media network. My name is Matthew Moreno, and I'm hosting tonight, filling in for Jeff, who may or may not still be reeling from the Oregon Ducks being a no-show in the Rose Bowl. And joining me is Blake, who, if I'm understanding this correctly, his football team won, but that has Blake in absolute shambles.
Unfortunately, yes. We are not going to get into too many details, but they lost the first overall pick in the draft, down to 4th. So, tough day.
Yeah. Blake and I are at odds when it comes to that. I think you play to win games and just let the pieces fall. But I don't want to bore everybody with a little New England Patriots talk. And so let's get into tonight's show. We're going to go over Blake and I were both at the Teoscar Hernandez press conference at Dodger Stadium on Friday. We heard from Teoscar. Dave Roberts and Brandon Gomes were also there. Brandon Gomes spoke kind of at length, both during the press conference and then afterwards. Looking back on it, Blake, as I was kind of transcribing all the quotes, Dave Roberts only got asked one question during the press conference, which I didn't realize at the time, but it was kind of funny to see it sort of play out that way. So not a whole lot from him, but we do have some comments and reaction, and we'll get into the Dodgers potentially working on another trade. Obviously, they have signed Ha-Seong Kim. I'm going to do the best to pronounce. I think I have the pronunciation correct there. If I don't, my apologies. So if we just say Kim, you guys will certainly know who we're discussing. But he's been signed, and right at the deadline on Friday, kind of the Dodgers made that deal official, and so there's a little bit of a ripple effect that I think Blake and I sort of are in agreement on what may end up what may end up happening and what could potentially the Dodgers might be working on right now with Gavin Lux. And of course, then we'll leave some time to answer your guys' question at the end. But if you are on YouTube and you want us to discuss a certain topic or answer a specific question, Super Chat is the way to go. We'll stop the show and get to that right away. Also, if you're on YouTube, please be sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe, ring the notification bell. If you're on Facebook and Twitter, we appreciate you guys supporting us there as well. All right, let's get into it. Blake, as I mentioned, we were both on hand for Teoscar's press conference. Was there any sort of, was there one kind of key takeaway that you had? I think there's something that stuck out for me, so I want to hear from you.
I didn't really have anything too surprising to take away from it. I thought a lot of it was kind of what we expected was going to happen, and a lot of the reporting that led into that, like he might end up taking less money to stay with the Dodgers. He wanted to stay with the relationships he's built with both players on the team and the fans. The Dodgers wanted him back. I think a lot of that was kind of what we were expecting throughout the entire offseason, and kind of just confirmed it at the press conference. So I am a little interested in hearing what stuck out to you.
Yeah, before we get to that, we do have a super chat. So let's answer this really quick. From Zenji, it says, did I or did I not call the Ha-Seong Kim signing no more platoon for Lux, need to trade him? Zenji, I can't remember if I was on one of the shows that you predicted this. I feel like I might have been. Nothing necessarily comes to mind, unfortunately. But if you hit the nail on the head, congratulations there. I was surprised by it just because I felt like there weren't any reports linking the Dodgers to Kim kind of along the way. And I feel like even his deadline to sign sort of snuck up on everybody. I saw that on Friday that, the Dodgers that he had a few hours remaining. Otherwise, he was going to have to return to the KBO League. And then, a couple hours later, then it was reported that the Dodgers had interest or that it made an offer. And then shortly after that, that he had signed. So, yeah, Zenji, I'm seeing Maddie Man say that you absolutely called that. So congratulations there. Not that I was doubting it, but I apologize for not remembering that if it was on a show that I was part of. No more platoon for Lux, need to trade him. We're going to get into that. So I want to table that a little bit because we have a plan to kind of really dive into some of those scenarios. But Zenji, thank you for our first super chat of the night. So back to Teoscar. Yeah, what's stuck out, I think, for me, and it is to sort of piggyback on what your takeaway was. A lot of his comments sort of made it seem to me like there really wasn't necessarily a huge market for him out there, at least not an aggressive one. that as it was sort of happening did surprise me. I know that people who are with us on a regular basis, I expressed some concern after Juan Soto signed with the Mets. I thought the Yankees, the Red Sox would maybe make Teoscar a pretty big offer to get him away from the Dodgers, because it was obvious, and he reiterated at his press conference that his priority was to stay in LA. I thought potentially if one of these other teams offered him, maybe 4 years, maybe a lot more money, that would be enough to pry him away from the Dodgers. It didn't seem, and am I wrong in kind of reading the tea leaves with some of his comments? Like, it didn't. I know that he said he could have, signed for 5 or 6 more million somewhere else, and that money wasn't necessarily the issue. But I really didn't get the sense that there was much of as robust of a market as maybe certain sides were trying to paint it to be.
I think that's probably true, and I think a lot of it played into most teams just kind of expected Teoscar was going to re-sign with the Dodgers, so they probably didn't make a huge effort. Like the Red Sox were the team most connected to him throughout the entire process other than the Dodgers, and the last report we got on them was they're not really being aggressive in their pursuit or intensifying their offers as it kept holding out with the Dodgers. And then I think the qualifying offer played a big part in it as well. Teams are hesitant to give up draft capitals, especially assigned a player on the older end of his career. You also, there's the concerns that every team I'm sure had that we were talking about with the defense, how he ages as a hitter. And when you put all those things together, a lot of teams probably figured it just isn't worth it to go pursue him. I'm a little surprised Anthony Santander hasn't signed yet, because he has some of those same issues, but he's younger. His bat is very comparable, and his market has seemed to be bigger so far. So to me, it's more surprising that he's out there, and Teoscar, it's not totally surprising that he didn't end up signing. The Yankees moved on to focus on Cody Bellinger and Max Fried. The Orioles, who had some interest at some point, signed Tyler O'Neill, and his market just kind of kept shrinking throughout the entire process. And like I said, it just felt like everyone assumed he was going to be back with the Dodgers. So how much effort do you really put on that as another organization trying to upgrade your team? You don't want to focus too much on trying to get him and then miss out on your other target because you were focusing on Teoscar, and he was just kind of using you to get a better offer from the Dodgers.
Yeah, and I think somewhat ironically, it came out, I forget if it was right after Teoscar agreed or right before he agreed to the 3-year deal with the Dodgers, that the Mets checked with him on, seeing if he'd be interested in a 2-year contract, which was kind of interesting. But yeah, to your point, it's been reported that the Red Sox, it's not believed that they even made him a contract offer. The Yankees, I think, sort of had interest early on and then kind of moved on. Yeah, so I lost my train of thought, so I apologize. Fortunately, we have Hawaiian Kira's comment and question up. She said, I'm glad Teo stayed with the Dodgers, but wasn't it taking a while for him to sign? This was something that Brandon Gomes was asked about, and he sort of alluded to, there wasn't necessarily, he didn't feel, at least the Dodgers didn't feel that it was taking a long time. He emphasized that, for a deal to come together, it has to obviously work for both sides. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get there, but he never really thought that Teoscar was going to be gone. Do you feel did it drag on longer maybe than you would have thought? Was it some of, I know we're kind of rehashing a little bit here. Was it some of just, maybe Teoscar's camp trying to get either a larger signing bonus or maybe less deferred salary or potential 4th-year stuff like that? Was it just par for the court? Do you think maybe we had unreasonable expectations of, well, Teoscar is saying he wants to come back, he's a natural fit for the Dodgers, so it should check in quickly?
I was a little surprised it didn't happen sooner, especially after Soto signed. I think Teoscar and his camp might have overplayed their market a bit, which probably played into this as well. But at the same time, they re-signed him officially on January 3rd. The season doesn't start until the middle of March. There's a lot of time left. So in the context of things, it seemed like it dragged out, but there's still a month and a half, 2 months basically of the off season to go. And he signed. It's not something they really have to worry about. They didn't miss out on any options or anything. So it took a little longer than I think a lot of us thought, but at the end of the day, they got it done. I don't think the timing really matters all that much because of that regard. They're going to keep talking over things and trying to work out different things. And sometimes it just takes a little longer. Sometimes it can come together quicker. But we're talking about it being really long, but it's the start of January and there's still a lot of time left.
Yeah. We have a couple more super chats. The first one is from 300GJW. I think other teams realized he wanted to stay with the Dodgers and would have to grossly overpay, grossly go over for him. This is again in reference to Teoscar Hernandez. Yeah, I agree. I thought that is what it would probably take to get him out of LA, or potentially maybe not so much of a huge overpay as it was just tacking on a 4th year that was maybe guaranteed, because that is one thing that I think the Dodgers sort of did draw a line in the sand at, was, it was going to be 3 years or less. Obviously, they ended up including the option that has a buyout. So I assume that will be utilized by it'll be declined and they'll pay him the buyout. But yeah, and I thought, there was a decent chance that there would be a team that maybe was going to be willing to overpay him. But perhaps, Blake, to your point, as you mentioned, some of the concerns that you expressed that the Dodgers seem to maybe have, other teams had as well, and that played a factor in it. Our next super chat's from Kerr. It says, in the unlikely event nobody picks up Cartaya, does he return to the Dodgers? Something about having no MLB service time. Yeah, this is a great point. Sort of, I don't want to say it flew under the radar, but in order for the Dodgers to make Kim's signing official, add him to the 40-man roster, they had to make room for him, and they did that by DFAing Diego Cartaya. Like kind of a two-part question here. Like, how, I want to say surprising is it that was the outcome? I mean, I guess I am still a little bit. So how surprising is it? Did you see something like that coming for Cartaya? And to answer Kerr's question, what are kind of the next steps ahead and the possibilities?
At first glance, I was surprised about it. I thought like Hunter Fiducia would be the first guy to get DFA'd if they had to give up on someone, just because of Cartaya's pedigree that he's had before, and he still is fairly young. Catcher development isn't always linear, and a lot of them don't really break out until they're like in their 24, 25 ages. Then I kind of thought about it more, and I was figuring like they do have a time period of a week to trade him now that he's been DFA'd. So maybe they were close on another deal to move him with some team, so they just DFA'd him to get him off the 40-man, and they could still end up making that trade. Or maybe there's just a consensus that teams around the league are low on him, and they could just option him back to the minor leagues once he clears waivers. So I still think the trade is kind of the most likely option. We haven't heard anything about it yet, but the Dodgers are pretty quiet with how their front office operates. So I think he's going to be traded. It wouldn't totally surprise me if he ends up back in the minor leagues, and I don't think he's going to end up being released or granted his outright waivers.
Yeah, and I think a couple important things. If the Dodgers do end up trading Cartaya, I wouldn't expect it to be any sort of major league player or somebody who would have to be added onto the 40-man roster. It never say never, but I think that would be unlikely. 1, 2, if he doesn't get claimed, or if the Dodgers don't work out any sort of trade, then yeah, like you mentioned, he could be sent outright to probably back to Oklahoma City and just, remain part of the organization, just off the 40-man roster. So there's some flexibility there. But yeah, I mean, Cartaya has clearly fallen behind Dalton rushing. We've seen Hunter Fiducia make his MLB debut. And I know that there's the name is escaping me. There's another young catcher they have in the organization, I believe. He's
the one they traded. Not thinking of him.
Maybe, perhaps, yeah, perhaps I was. So yeah, I mean, Will Smith obviously is locked in at catcher at the major league level. So and Cartaya has struggled. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster for him the past couple of years. So the outlook wasn't necessarily all that favorable. Let's circle back to Teoscar a little bit. I know that you had a chance to speak with him after the press conference and ask him kind of, when his strong feelings for the Dodgers and kind of the fans sort of developed. What can you share about? And we do have that video, but if people haven't watched it yet, what can you share with what he told you?
Yeah, kind of a lot of the same things. Like, he really just loved the city. He loved all the relationships he built with players. Dodgers were like the top team that he wanted to go to. He made that very clear, and he kept reiterating that throughout the entire press conference. He discussed playing right field again and potentially playing in the World Baseball Classic, but he was excited to go back to right field because that's been his regular position throughout his career. He really expressed that he just wants to be a team player and do whatever they need to win. And there's one more thing. I'm trying to pull up the quote here.
Yeah, and as you're doing that, we will maybe we could. Well, go ahead. You have.
So yeah, I asked him like, was there a specific moment during the season that you knew like the Dodgers were the team you wanted to come back to? And he said it was right after the first half when I realized how this organization treats players, treat the family, and the way they make sure every single player is better, even though there are a lot of superstars on this team. When you have a player, when you have that as a player, you think, okay, I need to do everything in my power to come back here so we continue to do the things we're doing right now and get better. And like that stood out to me, especially because I don't know how much truth there was to it, but like when Juan Soto's negotiations were going on, there was stuff about how they kind of like brushed off his family and didn't treat them very well. And Teoscar to bring that out, like say how the Dodgers are first class for his family as well. I think that kind of stood out. And we kind of hear that a lot from players, like
Yeah.
how the organization is just first class all around. We know that on the field, like they're always going to put out a winning team, but a lot of the stuff they do behind the scenes as well plays into it. And free agents and other players around the league, like that word gets around and they talk about that, and players value that.
Yeah, and those are great points. And I think the other thing too is, it's not oftentimes, we'll hear players say like they appreciate support from the fans, they want to play for them, they want to win for them, all that stuff. And not that I don't want to say people have been disingenuous with it, but I do think that there was a certain level. It was more genuine, I think, with Teoscar Hernandez than, again, not every player, but maybe it wasn't just lip service that we were getting from him. And I think he reiterated that during his press conference, and then when he was speaking with you after the fact of how much he did feel the connection and the support from fans. And I remember, one of the quotes he said, feeling that getting that type of support, it motivates him to go out and play, I think, at 110% or something along the lines like that. So, it was good to see. Obviously, this was a resolution, the outcome that I know a lot of fans were certainly hoping for. We joked a couple times, he remained a free agent, what our live show would be like if he didn't end up re-signing with the Dodgers, even if they did sign Juan Soto, because as we were covering that stuff, there was a lot of people that were upset. But yeah, all's well that ends well. Teoscar Hernandez is obviously back for at least the next 3 seasons, team option on the 4th year, but a potential, not potential, it does include a buyout, which I think would be the most likely outcome, but that's neither here nor there because there's still, 2025 first, of course, and then a couple more years after that. Second topic from the press conference was Brandon Gomes. He represented the Dodgers front office. Andrew Friedman wasn't able to make it on Friday. Gomes, as I mentioned earlier, he didn't express much concern over whether or not the Dodgers would re-sign Teoscar Hernandez and the timeline that it was taking. He also explained that he joked that his daughter was giving him a hard time, asking him every day when the Dodgers would re-sign him, so they were glad to be able to do that. But then I think the more kind of, I don't want to say interesting, but detailed answers was when Gomes spoke with you and some other members of the media after the fact. And I think without kind of specifically saying there was one key area the Dodgers are looking at, he sort of hinted at where they might still add to the roster. And what was his answer there?
The bullpen. It's the thing that keeps the front office up at night. And they've been very connected to relievers throughout the offseason. As we reported, they tried to include Gavin Lux in a trade for Devin Williams. That didn't work out because the Yankees ended up swooping in. But they've been widely connected to Tanner Scott as well. And that's kind of the main piece on their roster that could still use an obvious upgrade. They have a very good and deep pen already, but Dave Roberts laid out the plan for us early in the offseason. He said, re-sign Teoscar, add a starting pitcher, bring back Blake Trinan, and add another high leverage arm. And so far, they've done 3 of those things. The only thing left to do is get that high leverage arm. Andrew Friedman has talked a lot about how they don't want to be buyers at the trade deadline because they want to have enough depth where they can sustain anything and not have to worry about making a deal that they wouldn't necessarily want to make. And relievers are one of the more expensive things to get at the trade deadline. They're highly coveted. So if you can sign one now, if you can acquire one now at a cheaper cost or something you prefer more, then I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think that's something they're still trying to do.
Yeah. So Brandon Gomes mentioned the bullpen. You mentioned Tanner Scott. Hawaiian Kier is asking the question that I think a lot of people are wondering. Does that mean that Tanner Scott is next? Is that who you see as maybe the most probable target for the Dodgers? They have already been linked to him. He's still a free agent. Or do you think that maybe they end up going in a different direction?
I think Scott is the most likely option of the players they could end up getting just because he is a free agent. It would only cost money to sign him. It's been reported there's mutual interest between the two sides. I think one of the things that's holding it up is there's also a report that he wants 4 years, 80 million. I don't think any team's going to go to that for him, so they're probably trying to wait it out and see if his market comes down. But at the same time, like the Dodger front office is also very interested in always making trades when they can find something that lines up. And if they could add a reliever there, we saw they already tried to acquire a reliever via trade. So maybe that is something they continue to look in, and it would help clear up some of the 40-man issues that they currently have with a stacked 40-man roster and like not really anyone obvious they can just DFA without losing value from it. So I think Scott is the most likely just because he's the easiest to acquire, but a trade could also be very possible.
Do you think the longer Scott remains a free agent, kind of better for the Dodgers in the sense that maybe his asking price isn't necessarily being met, and so he'll have to take, I don't want to call it team friendly, but kind of maybe sign for less than he envisioned at this point? Or do you think some team, maybe it's just a matter of there's a freeze kind of on free agency? It's not just him, right? There's Jack Flaherty is still out there. Kike Hernandez, I know not necessarily, in the same caliber as
Just
these
wanted
guys.
to say Kike and bring him up.
there are other free agents still out there. Do you think that the market is kind of just on hold for everybody right now, and that's the hang up with Tanner Scott? Or is it maybe that teams don't want to pay, 4 years, 80 million for a relief pitcher, even though he is certainly coming off a strong year?
I think teams don't want to pay that much for a reliever. There's been a lot of bad deals that end up going to relievers on bigger contracts. So I think they're all trying to bring that cost down. I also think we're kind of at the point of free agency where most of the top options have dried up now, and teams are going to their fallback options. So they're considering like 4 different players instead of just focusing on trying to get one, which creates like more of a delay in trying to get deals done. I think a lot of the players are probably hoping their markets are going to be better than they actually are. And teams are just saying, like, we're willing to hold out because if we lose you, we can just move on to the next guy. And it's not as significant as if we lost out on, say, Blake Snell or Corbin Burns. Like the difference from going from Jack Flaherty to like, say, I think Nathan Eovaldi might be a free agent, or like that kind of downgrade there isn't very significant as opposed to if you lost out on one of the top guys. So teams are more just willing to hold out and wait at this point. And some of the players available are not necessarily willing to take the offer that's there to them because they're probably trying to hold out and see if another team gets desperate and jumps in the mix for them.
Yeah. I like this comment from Don Kim. It says, yes, think so. The longer Scott takes, the more Friedman is able to box out and get a rebound. This is something that Andrew Friedman and Brandon Gomes have always said. The Dodgers, they basically repeat the message that they try to be opportunistic with everything. Gomes even joked when he said it on Friday that we're probably tired of hearing that from them, but that is true. I know Andrew Friedman also in the past has said the Dodgers try to, quote, hang around the backboard or some variation of some of that wording. And so Don Kim, that's a great play on something Friedman has said. A couple more things with Gomes. I know he updated things with Shohei Ohtani. What can you tell us there?
Yeah, so Shohei Ohtani had the shoulder surgery in the offseason after the World Series. He was very limited in the World Series from what we were able to see. And so far, he's progressed to taking dry hacks. He's not hitting off a tee or facing any pitching or anything like that, but he is swinging, and that is a positive update. Gomes said he's progressing well, so should be ready for opening day. We'll see how it goes. The Dodgers with injuries and all that, they tend to be more cautious on things and don't rush players, and I really don't think they're going to rush Shohei back if anything slows down with his rehab or anything. But right now, all things are on track and looking good.
Yeah. And the last, probably maybe the last thing, and arguably I would say the most notable, was Gomes was asked with the Kim signing, who Kim plays second base, shortstop. Does he play third base as well?
Third base, left and right field.
Third base, and then, yeah.
Well, to say he plays it is like he's played there in the past, but he's mainly a second baseman pretty much exclusively at this point, but he has experience at other positions.
Right. That obviously begs the question of what are the Dodgers doing with their middle infield? Of course, we've heard Mookie Betts is going to shortstop. Gavin Lux is remaining second base. Brandon Gomes was asked about that outlook, and he did say that the line of thinking right now was still the Dodgers were still committed to Mookie Betts and Gavin Lux up the middle. Blake, I think you and I are on the same page. I feel like I don't want to say that I was ahead of you on this stuff, but I felt like the sentiment of Gavin Lux's outlook, long-term outlook with the Dodgers, I didn't really see it fitting. Like that was this. I feel like I've been expressing that for kind of a while. I don't want to say you came around to it, but I know that you, when we were discussing it with Jeff and Daniel and Scott, like you brought up that point. You also reported, as you mentioned, about a month ago, I guess at this point, a few weeks ago, that Gavin Lux his name was included in trade proposals between the Dodgers and the Brewers for Devin Williams. It has now been reported, I think Mike Ragazzo had it, that the Yankees had interest in Gavin Lux at some point recently, and that the Mariners may be going after him pretty strongly. So is a Gavin Lux trade before, call it opening day, sort of feeling inevitable at this point?
I kind of think so, especially as I laid out the roster more so. Like, I think when there's smoke, there's fire with this. Gavin Lux has been in multiple trade discussions that we've heard of throughout the offseason and even dating back to last year. I think they were very committed to giving him the shortstop chance last year and seeing if he could fill that in. He failed at it, and they kind of had to adjust on the fly. It didn't work out too well, but to his credit, he played well enough, at least by the end of the year, because we know it was a very mixed road to get there with very high points and very low points, but it might be the ideal time to trade him. He's probably not going to be part of their future. If Mookie Betts doesn't work out at shortstop, he's going to take second base, and it's going to leave Gavin Lux out of a job there. And if you just kind of lay out the roster right now, it's very crowded, and they have a lot of middle infield options. You're kind of putting out a point where you're going to have to get rid of Kike, Chris Taylor, which I know a lot of fans are going to be happy about getting rid of Chris Taylor, but
Well,
he is on
you
the
can't
roster at this point.
You can't get rid of Kike. He's not on the team yet.
Well, like, not re-sign him. Move on from him.
Got it. Okay, got it. Okay. Sorry. I wasn't tracking you. My bad.
So they're going to have to make some tough decisions with the middle infield. It does help that Kim could be optioned to the minor leagues. They don't have any clause in his contract like a lot of players have received where they could decline or veto an option to the minor leagues. But I don't think the Dodgers are going out and paying him to go sit in the minor leagues. Maybe it happens for a month or something, but like he's going to be on the major league roster at some point this year. So once you start lining things up, you probably have about 16 players that would need to be on the roster for 13 spots. And just doing the math there, like, you're going to have to make some tough decisions. And I know you don't want Kike gone. I think Chris Taylor is probably going to be the odd man out or just stick around in case of an injury. But trying to pull this up real quick. Okay, here we go. So how I kind of see it working out is you would have Smith and Barnes at catcher, Freddie Freeman at first. I'm going to skip second base to talk about that at the end. Mookie at short. You could have Muncy at third, Conforto, Edman, Teoscar, and Pajes as your four outfielders. Ohtani DHing. So then you're left with, if they resign Kike, which I think most of us assume is kind of going to happen, you have Kim, Rojas, Kike, and Taylor for essentially 3 spots there. So yeah, where are all these guys going to play? How are they going to manage it? You can't really say like Miguel Rojas is just going to platoon with Mookie at shortstop because Mookie's not moving off shortstop. So he's probably going to fill in some time at second base and third base. Do you want Gavin Lux and Rojas to platoon at second base? It makes sense, but then what are you doing with Kim? You're not signing him just to like do nothing. So I think Gavin Lux is probably going to be the odd man out, maybe traded for a reliever or international bonus pool money. We know they've talked a lot about how Roki Sasaki is their main priority right now, and they're going to do everything they can to get him. I think if it comes down to like we can trade Gavin Lux for bonus pool money and get Roki Sasaki from it, I think they're going to do that. But I kind of see it playing out with Kim and Rojas platooning at second base. You could potentially mix Kike in there as well if you re-sign him. So you're essentially moving on from Gavin Lux and Chris Taylor to make the roster work.
Yeah. What about GI? I think brings up a good point. He says, I think we can all agree that Mookie isn't the best fit at shortstop, but trading away Lux before knowing what you have in Kim is putting the proverbial cart before the horse. I think there is some merit to that. I understand the concern. My guess, and you can, if you have a different thought, then that's fine. My guess is the Dodgers, assuming if Kike is on the, I think one of Kike or Chris Taylor will be on the roster for 2025. And so if you were to trade Gavin Lux, if Kim does struggle and he's not ready, I think you could plug in Kike or Taylor, or as you said, even Miguel Rojas at second base. I think there's also, as much as maybe the Dodgers won't publicly say it, there's the potential that Mookie Betts goes to second base and you put, Tommy Edman at shortstop or Miguel Rojas at shortstop, and you figure that out later. So is there the reason to maybe pause on trading Lux before knowing what you're going to have in Kim, the way GI brings up?
I get that, and I think it's valid, but at the same time, like, even if Kim isn't ready and you completely remove him from the equation, there's still other things you could do to fill in. I don't think the gap from going from Gavin Lux to Miguel Rojas playing most of your reps at second base is very significant there. You could move in Tommy Edman from center field to second base and put Pajas in the outfield, which I know you're hurting the defense there, but you're probably upgrading the offense. If you don't want to hurt the defense, you just go with the Miguel Rojas route. You could play Kike there on a more full-time role if he ends up re-signing. Like, I don't think it's a huge deal where if you get rid of Gavin Lux and have to go with the alternative options there, you're not losing a whole lot there. Like, Miguel Rojas was better than Lux last year for the majority of the year. So I think they'd be very comfortable with the backup options they have if things don't work out with Kim. And there's probably going to be some growing pains, but as we've seen very often with this team, they're not really concerned about the regular season. It's all about doing whatever you can in the postseason. And if it takes Kim a full season to get ready and then he's able to contribute in September and October, they're going to be fine with that. If Kike is their starting second baseman in October, I think everyone's going to be fine with that. It's just a point where if you can move Gavin Lux for a player that helps your team now, like a reliever or something along those lines, I think it makes sense to do that because you're probably not going to lose a whole lot at second base by moving on from him.
Yeah. I think another thing too, to sort of tie this all together, as much as I think you, myself, a lot of people who are with us tonight watching this and who have tuned into some of our other shows, think that a trade is necessary, just because as we went over, there are a ton of middle infield options and a lot of depth there. Brandon Gomes did say, and it could be just GM speak. Of course, he's not going to come out and say, yes, we need to make a trade, and that kind of, removes your leverage. But he did say that indicate the Dodgers don't feel any pressure or any real need to trade from their depth. And he referenced all the injuries that they endured last season as reason for that. But yeah, I mean, I think as you outlined, whether it's Lux or Chris Taylor, like something's got to give. Particularly if, and we are assuming that there is interest in re-signing Kike. So especially if that is going to come to fruition, like there just isn't sheer numbers, like there's not room for him unless you make some sort of trade. So maybe it's not Gavin Lux, maybe it's Chris Taylor instead, but certainly somebody from that group will probably be sent out before opening day.
I think the other part worth noting here is like none of us, I wouldn't say none of us, but most of us don't have like confidence in Mookie working out at shortstop. And
Sure.
If he needs to move back to second base, Lux is out of a job. He's not moving to shortstop. He can't play any other positions. And then we've seen in the past, he has not been a good pinch hitter. And then you essentially just have a guy sitting on the bench, not providing any value to the team. So I think trading him now with 2 years left on his contract for a guy he's not going to be in their future plans more likely than not. I think most of us assume Mookie Betts is going to be their long-term second base, and he's just kind of a stopgap at shortstop right now. So Lux probably isn't getting re-signed. Like, this is the ideal time to trade him. And even if you get slightly worse there for 2025, you're going to probably add a piece back, or at least an intriguing prospect that will give you value to add another piece, or you're getting another piece back that can help you. So you might downgrade at second base in the immediate present, but you're probably going to upgrade at another position or get something that'll help you down the line. So I think it just makes a lot of sense to trade him. And with all the reports we've heard talking about him in potential trades, I think the Dodgers are at least considering it.
Real quick, Matty Man, I was laughing because he said Jeff Spiegel's going to punch you, Blake, for, I'm assuming this is in reference to questioning Mookie's shortstop ability. I can assure you there. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a double whammy. I can assure you though that there would not be any fight between Blake and Jeff. We all have, sometimes we align on topics, other times we disagree, and that's what I think makes this all fun. And Matty Man, I know you're joking around.
He's also in Oregon, so it would be tough.
That's true. And I'm glad that you brought up the Mookie comment though, because I'm not. I don't know if I'm able to. I'd have to check the fine print in my New Year's resolution contract. I said what 2 months or 3 months with not worrying about Mookie at shortstop. So I'm glad that that was your thought that you brought up. But yes, I could see it unfolding that way, and I know other people do as well. And another comment I want to touch on really quick. I forgot it. Pez said something to the account. Yeah, he's calling Kike a lucky mascot at best. Doesn't make sense to sign another 180 hitter. Pez, as Blake said, this team is playing for a World Series. So just look at Kike's postseason stats, and then that tells you everything you need to know. A clubhouse guy, somebody who can produce for you in the playoffs, signing him to a 1 year, even a 1 year with an option contract is totally fine.
Do you think he's also intriguing enough to bring back just based on how he played after he got his vision corrected and started using glasses? Like most of the year, he wasn't playing with glasses and apparently couldn't see the ball well enough. And I was one of the first people calling for him to be DFA'd or move on from him before we knew about that. And then he started playing with the glasses and he picked it up. So if he comes back on a 1 year deal, I don't think he's going to be a 180 hitter. He's probably not going to be like a starter caliber player, but there's worse players to have around. And we've seen what he's done in the postseason. How sustainable that is. I think we can have debates on that, but I mean, he's worth probably having around still.
Like, was there anybody telling you not to worry about Kike during the regular season, that he was around for the playoffs? Did you hear that from someone at some point?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I felt like maybe you'd been getting those messages, but I guess I'm wrong.
To be fair, I don't think that would have happened without the glasses, though.
I guess we'll never I guess we'll never know, right? Is that the
Corey Seager quote?
Yeah, the Corey Seager. I am glad to see Keektober has taken off with our show, so we're gonna have to let Jeff know that if and when Kike resigns, that he needs to start using that more often. All right. I think, we have a super chat. David, I apologize for not getting to this earlier. I saw it as Blake was kind of in the middle of an answer. And I didn't want to interrupt him. He says, are my eyes deceiving me, or is this Ha-Seong Kim signing a very elite fielding second baseman? So we were just discussing kind of how the Dodgers probably need to trade from the middle infield if there's concern with moving Lux before knowing what you have in Kim. I think the reports are out there that second base, like if he's going to stick anywhere at the major league level, it is at second base.
Yeah, he's a very good defender at second base. He's been recognized in Korea as one of the best defensive second basemen for I think 3 years now, and that's where he's probably expected to play. The Dodgers keep saying he's going to be a utility guy, and Gavin Lux is their second baseman, but to me that rings of D. Gordon is their second baseman type stuff from Farhan, 2015 or whatever it was. Like GM speak, you can't always take it for what they say. So yeah, I think that's the other factor with Kim that we haven't really talked about. Even if he's not a great hitter, he's going to play good defense, and he's a very quality base runner. So you're still going to get value out of him, even if the offense isn't great. Whereas Gavin Lux, he's not a very good base runner, even though he has speed, and he's a fine second baseman. But like you replace that with Kim, and it's not going to change a whole lot.
Yeah, NS is asking about the KBO, how they the Golden Gloves in the KBO, that a lot of emphasis is placed on offense. That is true. The Golden Glove awards in the KBO, from my understanding, are for like the best player at that position, which encompasses offense and is in addition to defense. There is also, I don't have the specific. I think they just call it a fielding award, maybe.
Something like that, yeah. Where he's won those too, though. So.
And that one is focus. It is like MLB's Gold Glove Award, where it is defensive based, and Kim has won multiple of those as well. So yes, the NS, that's kind of the clarification there. But yeah, I mean, he should be a pretty sure-handed second baseman at minimum. I think shortstop, there was concern about his arm a little bit.
Sounds like someone else the Dodgers have.
Yeah, with the Dodgers, they have a shortstop already, so no need to worry about that. Again, that kind of just circles back to, I think, our larger point and kind of the focus of tonight's show was a Gavin Lux trade sort of looks like it needs to happen at some point. I think it would make sense for Lux too. Like I know that he has struggled. I know, I was preaching patience last year since he had just missed a full season of baseball and he was coming back from major knee surgery and stuff like that. I think he would benefit from a little bit of a fresh start instead of sort of bouncing back and forth. And also, even as much as the Dodgers said, okay, you're playing second base, like now they go and sign Kim. There's the reality of, does Mookie Betts move off of shortstop at some point? I'm not saying it is. I'm sticking to my New Year's resolution, but does that potentially happen? And if you're Gavin Lux, I think that's in the back of your mind, as you said. If that's what the Dodgers end up doing, where is he going to play? So it could just, kind of be a tipping point where it does make sense for both parties. All right, let's get into some questions from you guys. As a reminder, if you could just start it with the word question in all caps, that makes it easier for Blake and myself to kind of pick them out as we're scrolling through everybody's comments. And as we wait for those to come in, Blake, I'll ask you, just for no reason in particular, if you're ever feeling like you need maybe a comfort meal, if it's been a rough day, is there something you go to? Is it something at home? Do you go get maybe chicken nuggets from Taco Bell? What's your pick me up meal?
Might be the chicken nuggets from Taco Bell right now. They are elite tier for fast food items. I know you won't try them for whatever reason, even though literally everyone who tries them keeps saying how good they are and better than Chick-fil-A nuggets. But, to each their own, I guess. You can be stubborn and not want to try them, but yeah.
Okay. All right. There it is. Hawaiian Cure wants to know how many times you've had them. Blake, I'll say more than 2, less than, I don't know. We can leave it at that.
More than 2.
Yeah. Let's see here. Justin, I see your question asking about breakfast. We'll get into, so we'll try to save some more of if you guys have food questions, we'll try to save those at the end. I know we try to do baseball first. And here's one from Scooter. It says, I do see that Seattle have interest in Lux. Is that currently developing or like a past story that happened? And what might be Seattle's offer? Not sure if Luis Castillo is on the table. The way I interpreted the Mariners' reported interest in Gavin Lux is that it's sort of happening already, or excuse me, it's happening like kind of presently, or at least recently. I don't have any sense on an offer. I know, like I imagine the Dodgers would probably want a relief pitcher back if they're maybe doing this. Luis Castillo, I don't see, considering he's a starter, I don't see him really as being involved.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect Castillo. I would expect either prospects, international signing money, or some reliever they have in their bullpen. I know Gabe Spire is an intriguing arm they have, a lefty coming off a somewhat down year, but the numbers behind his stats are pretty encouraging there. So he could be someone. I know, like Munoz is going to be the popular name, but I don't think Lux is good enough to get Munoz unless you're adding a whole lot to that. I think he's signed through 2029 with team options, so not going to be cheap there. You probably have to include a few other good pieces there as well. But yeah, I would probably expect a prospect route from them if that's the way it was going.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Obi-Wan wants to know predictions when Shohei will pitch. So Dave Roberts did speak with, an international member of the media. I think somebody based out of Japan, and he intimated, suggested, said, or at least it was relayed that he was having a conversation with the Team Japan manager from the WBC, and Dave Roberts said he won't let Ohtani pitch until May. And that does line up with prior comments that Dave made during the winter meetings of sort of saying, the Dodgers weren't sure yet of when Ohtani would be back on the mound. And part of their thought process was going to be not wanting to start him pitching and then have to shut him down at some point during the season. He is going to be on an innings limit. So I assume that if it is going to be May, that Ohtani would then be able to, make starts. The Dodgers will be in a 6-man rotation, and he'll kind of, hopefully stay healthy and continue pitching for them into October. And I know what a lot of people are hoping will be a long playoff run. Let's see what other questions. Justin says, does Cartaya play an inning in the majors this year?
If he gets traded, I'd say yes. If he doesn't get traded and goes back to the minors, I'd say no.
Yeah, I agree.
So ask me again in a week.
I agree with that. Let's see. what other questions we have here? Ederico says, is Kike still a target for the Dodgers? If yes, which position will he primarily play? So there hasn't been a whole lot of updates or reports on Kike, whether the Dodgers or any other team. The assumption has held Kike did come out and similar like Teoscar Hernandez and say he wants to be back. I know I was covering his Raising Cane's visit early in the offseason. He told the fans he said, I want to be back. Let Andrew Friedman know. I think it's just like an assumption that he's going to be back. So assuming that is the case, do you see a position maybe center field, I think, is probably where he'll play the most, although I guess it's hard to say, right? Because a lot of it depends on Tommy Edman and maybe the second base stuff.
I think if he comes back, which I think is likely, he would probably platoon with Muncy a lot at third base, because Muncy has not played well versus lefties for the last 2 years now. And if they move on from Gavin Lux, maybe he ends up playing there. I guess even if they keep Gavin Lux, he could end up platooning with Lux at second base also. But basically, I kind of see Rojas and Kike platooning at second and third base for a lot of the year.
There you go. Okay, let's move on. We're getting a lot of good questions tonight. Ryan wants to know, is KBO better than AAA level?
I believe the consensus around the league is that it's a step above AA and a step below AAA in rankings, and PB is more closely like aligns with AAA, like a step above AAA and a step below the majors.
Yeah. Also, I did see, I think Justin was clarifying, his question was about Rushing and not Diego Cartaya. So will Dalton Rushing play an inning at the majors this year?
I would say he plays at least multiple innings at the majors this year. We know the Dodgers are going to have injuries. They're trying to get Rushing some versatility. So I think it'll happen at some point. I would be surprised if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, does that playing time at the major league level come with the Dodgers or with another team? But I think you sort of answer that. And Deuce, kind of piggybacking off the Dalton Rushing question, he wants to know where he's going to play.
The Dodgers keep saying they view him as a catcher still. They've tried moving him to left field. I believe Brandon Gomes recently talked about it and said, like, we view him as a really good hitter. Wherever we get him in the lineup, we think he's going to make an impact. So might have to wait and see. I would guess it's going to be the outfield first crack, but maybe Will Smith gets injured or Austin Barnes gets injured at some point and they need a backup catcher, and Rushing's the guy they go with. So I guess catcher is probably the safest bet for making his debut. If he's going to take over an everyday role, it's probably going to be an outfield spot.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Kapil wants to know, what is James Outman's trade value after last year? So we were discussing Gavin Lux trade, maybe Chris Taylor. Do you see James Outman potentially getting moved?
I could see it. I don't think it's very high. Maybe some team believes in the bat still. I kind of have doubts because what he did last year was more similar to what scouts have been saying about him for quite some time. And it seems like his rookie season was more of an outlier than anything. So I'd be surprised if someone trades anything significant for him rather than maybe taking a flyer on him. At that point, it probably makes sense for the Dodgers just to keep him in AAA and have the depth in case someone gets hurt and they need to call up a center fielder or something like that. So yeah, I'd be surprised if he's moved, I guess, just because I don't think any team's going to trade much value for him.
Yeah, I agree. We have another one from Deuce about Dalton Rushing. If Rushing is going to be a catcher, why re-sign Barnes? I think the real question, they're not going to call up Dalton Rushing to be a backup and play, once every 10 days or so. So that's one. Two, Barnes is just signed through the 2025 season, which I anticipate will probably be Clayton Kershaw's last, and that might line up with Austin Barnes' tenure with the Dodgers. Maybe he goes one more year after that. The real interesting thing is going to be to see what happens with Will Smith kind of entrenched at catcher now with his long-term extension and how that potentially affects Dalton Rushing. That's the question. And I'm not sure what's going to happen there. I mean, does Will Smith or Dalton Rushing play first base as Freddie Freeman either, moves on or retires? So that'll be something to sort of monitor. Common Sense once says Rojas has a career 85 OPS plus. Do we expect his offense to return to that next season post surgery? So yeah, Rojas is coming off a pretty strong year offensively. I mean, I felt like he kept hitting even after. Maybe I'm misremembering. I felt like he did okay even after his injury. It's also not entirely clear when he got hurt during the regular season. I know it was later in the second half at some point. But what are you expecting from Miguel Rojas at the plate?
Not a whole lot. I think last year we kind of just kept waiting for it to regress, and it never did. But the thing I'm considering with him, like, if you're getting an 85 OPS plus guy who's going to play elite defense, like, it's still fine for a backup. And even if you trade Lux and Rojas ends up becoming your starter at second base because Kim isn't good enough to play there yet or anything, like, an 85 OPS plus with his elite defense is not a huge downgrade from what Gavin Lux is giving you. So, like, I don't think they're too concerned about it. And they value having Rojas in the clubhouse as well. So even if the offense isn't there, like, he's a guy they like having around.
Yeah. All right. We have a few more here. We're saving against. I have seen some food ones. We will save those towards the end so that we can definitely be sure to get all the baseball topics out of the way. Larry wants to know, does anyone have interest in CT3 and his contract? Yeah, I mean, I think what helps the Dodgers if they are looking to trade Chris Taylor is that he's entering the final year of his deal. I imagine that they still would probably have to pay a portion of that as well. But, it's not like he has 2 or 3 years at a high salary and you're looking at his production, it's kind of dropped off. So is there interest? Maybe not necessarily a whole lot, but you might be able to find a taker if the Dodgers are, like I said, paying a portion of his remaining salary. I don't know, Blake, do you feel strongly one way or the other?
I would say strongly that no one has interest in going out and getting him. But if the Dodgers say eat 75% of his deal or attach a player back with him, that might change and the team would be willing to eat the contract. But no team is going out and saying, like, we want Chris Taylor, we're going to do what it takes to get him.
This one's from Devin, and I apologize for not getting to your question in other shows. It says Luis Castillo in the Lux trade. Also, please not to New York Yankees because the Yanks are trying to dump Stroman's contract. So yeah, we did discuss this. Luis Castillo being part of a trade that involves Gavin Lux is unlikely. Both, one, because the Dodgers would have to send certainly a lot more, and two, they don't have a need for starting pitching. Is there a 3 you want to add? I see you smirking.
I wouldn't totally rule it out. Like, say the Dodgers want to upgrade and throw in like Tony Gonsolin and
True.
Lux and 2 other players or some 2 prospect type thing. Like, they might get a little greedy. So I wouldn't totally rule it out, but I would say it's pretty unlikely.
True. That's a good point. But I think, and I know you're not saying that, but that would be like assuming they don't sign Roki Sasaki, right? Then maybe they look to do something. Or you think
I think Roki is like a complete outlier in any other plans they have this offseason. Like, I don't think Roki is impacting anything they do either way with anyone else.
Okay. I thought Roki was why you didn't need Walker Buehler, though.
No, they didn't need Walker Buehler because he's probably not going to be a good investment.
Okay. All right. Let's see what other questions we have. Tien wants to know if we're not able to sign Tanner Scott, what are other options for the bullpen? I'm not up to speed on a whole lot of relief pitchers. I think you've thrown out a few names both tonight and maybe in the past as well. Is there anybody that would stick out that you think the Dodgers might want to target?
Kirby Yates maybe is kind of the name a lot of people have thrown out that comes to mind. Jeff Hoffman is a player I like. He had a breakout year for the Phillies last year. I think they could be interested in him. Getting a little dry on the relief pitcher market, just from like top ends. I think Carlos Estevez is a free agent. He could be someone they take a look at, but I mean, I'd probably be going for Tanner Scott over any of them. So Hoffman would probably be my fallback.
There you go. Let's see. We have another super chat from Genji. Matt and Blake, thank you for getting us through the silly season. Chick-fil-A nuggets are the kings of all nuggets. Zenji, well, thank you, and thank everybody who has continued to support us, not only throughout the season and obviously the playoffs, the World Series, and all that, but the offseason. Like, I know that it could get a little dry, a little monotonous. Fortunately, the Dodgers have been plenty active. We've had a lot to discuss, and yeah, if all else fails, we can end a show with 15, 20 minutes of food talk that sometimes people enjoy it, sometimes people get a little upset. The Chick-fil-A nuggets, I have not had them. I have also not had Taco Bell. So Blake, see, it's nothing personal against Taco Bell. But I don't want to fully get into that yet. You can go ahead. You can comment on the nuggets.
I'm surprised you haven't had Chick-fil-A nuggets, but like you've had their soup and stuff like that.
Well, their soup is good. I like because if I'm getting chicken from Chick-fil-A, and Mr. Classic says I just come here for the food. So hey, you're at the right spot of this show right now. When I've gotten chicken, I used to get the spicy chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A. Then I started to like the grilled chicken sandwich that they have. So if I get chicken, I get that. If I want something different, if I've been feeling under the weather, that's when I'll get the soup.
Real quick, I also want to point out that Scott agrees with me that the Taco Bell nuggets are better than Chick-fil-A, and I've heard that from multiple other people as well. So this isn't just me being biased. This is a growing common take, and the Taco Bell nuggets are only for a limited time. So I keep trying to hype them up so Taco Bell keeps them as a full-time item. So I'm trying to get everyone to go try them.
There we go.
You won't regret it.
And I am getting validated that the soup is good at Chick-fil-A. Excuse me, Geschmake says, I just come here for the laughs. Glad we can entertain you, especially during the off season. NS Blake is quite you're dragging Scott under. Yeah, I can confirm it. No, I actually cannot confirm or deny what Scott has said about chicken nuggets, unfortunately.
No, he sent it in our group text.
Wink, wink. All right, let's get to a couple more baseball ones before we can finish. I do see we do have food questions. This is somewhere in the middle. Duncan wants to know which DodgerHead staff will be the first to touch Teo's beard. I think Scott would be the most close. Scott would be the most inclined to, but he would also understand that we have a level of professionalism here. And David Vassay is a different situation. I saw somebody mention that Vassay touched Teoscar's beard. That's totally different. I don't want to say topic, but scenario. And he's able to get away with that. For us, we would not do that. Yeah, Laura is guessing Scott right away. Justin thinks it would be you because you don't have a beard right now.
I don't care to touch his beard. Like I don't know. I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
it's definitely Scott by a long shot.
I agree with you there. All right, let's see here. Nomo Splitter. I thought this was a good one. Assuming we get Sasaki, who are the top 4 starting pitchers for the playoffs if everyone is healthy? So let's do everyone's healthy. Let's put them in order. Games 1, 2, 3, and 4. Who are you trotting out? And I know that it requires some kind of projecting with Sasaki.
Snell, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Ohtani.
Forgot about Ohtani. Yeah, that's
my thing with Sasaki is he has like all the talent and upside in the world, but he's still not a finished product, and his agent has said the same. Like he's very much someone you're going to have to develop and continue to work with and grow. He's not. I don't think he's going to come in and be an ace or anything like a lot of people are expecting. I think there's going to be some growing pains there, and he'll probably be a fine middle of the rotation starter, a back end starter in his first year, but like you're getting him for the potential, not necessarily what he's going to do this upcoming year.
It's fair. And I think I agree. I think I do think that's the order. You could make an argument that, perhaps Ohtani in a game 2, although, Yamamoto will be in his second season, so maybe they start him on the road, but if kind of their trend, at least.
You don't think they're getting home field?
Well, I meant if you push Yamamoto back, if you were to move Ohtani up, that would be the only thing that I would potentially change. But again,
my thing with Ohtani is I don't think they're going to want him to pitch twice in a series coming off his surgery. So you put him at the end there and kind of guarantee he's only pitching once. Let him focus on DHing and just starting one game in the middle of the series. Like it's not necessarily about talent or anything. I think it just works out how they would have to use the rotation.
That makes sense. Maybe when they get to the playoffs, they just want Ohtani to only focus on hitting, and Sasaki is starting a game 4 at that point. Who knows?
Although we know by the time we get there, it's going to be Blake Snell and Anthony Banda and Tony Gonsolin and random minor leaguer we haven't heard of yet.
I could see that happening. I could also see, maybe Walker Buehler is traded back at the deadline because the Dodgers somehow find themselves needing starting pitchers come the middle of the season. But
you don't think Buehler is going to help them contend over there in Boston?
I don't think Boston's going to help Buehler contend. All right, let's see. Okay, so this is the last kind of baseball one that I see. So just a fair warning. We have a couple of baseball ones. Fair warning that we will be shifting to food here at some point to kind of close out the show, because we're answering questions that people have asked. It's not because Blake and I want to derail this by any means. But before we get there, Doug says, what teams do you consider the biggest threats to the Dodgers? This is something that I've been thinking about recently. He's asking more broadly for me, and I don't want to detract from his question. I've been focusing more so on the NL West. I don't think, is it a stretch to say that the Diamondbacks have kind of jumped back ahead of the Padres as the biggest threat in the division?
I think it's close, but we have to factor in they lost Christian Walker, so who's going to be their Dodger killer now?
Good point.
Like, they don't have someone to hit 10 homers in 2 games against them.
Okay. So that's a good point. To Doug's question, are you looking kind of further outside of maybe the division? Who would you say are maybe the biggest threats to the, let's say, like World Series threats, not just NLCS for the pennant?
It's tough because I don't think there's a single team on paper that is competing with the Dodgers. The issue is baseball isn't played on paper. The Phillies have like a lot of talent, but they also struggled last year and didn't show up when it mattered. The Mets have a good lineup. They still need to add another bat, and I don't really fear any of their pitching. I think on paper, the Dodgers are by far the most talented team in baseball, so you're kind of just picking, like, who do you think is the second best of a lot of flawed teams, and probably the Mets, I'd say, but like I said, I don't trust their pitching all that much, and they still have other holes they need to fill. Their bullpen isn't all that great. So, yeah, maybe the Diamondbacks or Padres are still up there, but even like the Padres aren't willing to spend money, and it seems like they want to cut money. Diamondbacks still have some questions on their roster. Like, just on paper, no team really competes with the Dodgers.
What about, I know it's a big if, but the Braves, if they're healthy?
Maybe. They just lost Max Fried, though, and they haven't done anything yet. I have questions about how effective Acuna is going to be coming off another ACL injury. So, like, they're a good team. Are they better than the Mets? Are they better than the Phillies? I'm not sure.
Yeah, Scarlet and Blue is all in on the Red Sox getting Walker Buehler and Garrett Crochet, and they signed Tyler O'Neill too, I think, right?
No, that was the Orioles.
Oh, that's right. The other way around. That's right. He left the Red Sox. That's right.
They apparently want Bregman, but the Red Sox are the new team of we're trying really hard for every free agent, but they don't like our money.
Yeah. Another question from Scooter. It says, you believe Kim would hit above average on the team? I do think he would play amazing defense for second. So yeah, I mean, obviously I think the focus is, can he hit well enough to maybe become the starting second baseman?
I don't think his hitting's going to carry him there. I wouldn't say he's going to be an above average hitter this year, but I think he'd be a fine enough player to start with his defense and base running ability that he also brings, where you could get away with it if you had to.
Is there, with Kim, do you think the expectation should be like league average hitter or slightly below league average? Where's the bar? Like, where are you setting your expectations for him?
I would go slightly below league average. Like, if he has an 85 weighted runs created plus or something this year, I wouldn't be totally surprised. If he goes significantly above 100 or even like too much above 105, 110, I'd be pretty surprised. The adjustment from going from KBO to MLB is pretty significant. So I would temper expectations on him, at least for the first year.
Yep. Hopefully everybody will take heed if he does get off to a little bit of a slow start. All right, we have a few more, and they are food related. This one's not a question, but a comment from Daniel. Says the Chicken Bell chicken nugget, the Taco Bell chicken nuggets are amazing. Best chicken nuggets in the game right now. I thought I was the only one who thought they were amazing until I brought it up to a coworker and he agreed. So if you're keeping score at home, we are now up to, I believe, 7 people in the world who have confirmed Taco Bell's chicken nuggets to be amazing. That's Blake, Scott, a couple of people Blake paid, and Daniel and his coworker. So that's where we're at with Taco Bell chicken nuggets.
I'm just saying, you can go try them for like $5 and make your own opinions off them. They are legit.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll see. Maybe if they become if the Dodgers win the World Series in 2025 and the Taco Bell chicken nuggets are a regular menu item, then maybe I try them. How about that?
You're missing out. You can do whatever you want. It's not going to affect me.
Here's another baseball we could throw in. Hawaiian Kira wants to know if you remember seeing Kim play in Korea when you were out there.
Vaguely, but like doesn't stick out too much or anything. So I more so remember the highlights of him, I think, doubling or homering off Bobby Miller. Those got posted quite often after he signed.
Yeah. And I will say Dave Roberts was after the Dodgers finished playing their 2 exhibition games. He was asked if anybody had stood out. And he didn't say Kim's name, but he called him their second baseman, which is where Kim was playing. He mentioned that the Dodger scouts had liked him for a while, and so kind of seeing him was interesting. Brandon Gomes did also say that seeing what Kim did against the Dodgers in those 2 games didn't necessarily push the Dodgers to sign him per se. It was more of like kind of validating in some sense why they were had interest and had been impressed by him leading up to that point. Obi-Wan wants to know chocolate chip cookies or Oreos.
I think they're in the same category for me. I guess if I had to pick, I'm going chocolate chip cookies if they're like homemade.
Yeah.
But if they're store-bought, I'm going with Oreos.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. All right, I think we have just a couple more. If you have any final questions, if it can be baseball related, we'll try to get to it. If not, we'll answer these 2 and then close out the show for tonight. David wants to know, he's been pushing for this, and I know, David, we did a food draft, I think, right? That I think he was part of helping us sort of get the wheels turning on. He wants to know if we're looking at an all food podcast in the near future. I don't know. I strictly focusing on food, I don't know if we'd be able to do that. We might be able to. I know we've said this, and the off season has kind of flown by to try to do like special food stuff only. Yeah, NS is saying Foodie Friday. Yeah, maybe we try something like that. But it does get hard during a baseball season just because there's so much going on. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to focus on food only.
The end of January, right before spring training starts to really kind of kick off, or like the start of February, after Roki is signed and most of the free agents are signed and the Dodgers have their roster set, there might be some downtime there.
There you go. Maybe that's when we can do it. Bob Nightingale, our good friend, good to see you back. Bob wants to know Cracker Jacks or cotton candy.
Cracker Jack is good.
I'm going cotton candy. All right, let's see, what else do we have. So I think this will be the last one unless we get something else. Justin wants to know, what do you guys usually have for breakfast? I'm pretty simple. If I'm at home, especially if it's during the week, I'll eat cereal, sometimes a bagel, sometimes like a hard-boiled egg with avocado toast, sometimes yogurt with granola. If it's the weekend and I want to kind of like splurge, I guess I've said this before, I do enjoy a breakfast burrito.
What kind of cereal, though? There's so many different kinds.
So I stick with I like frosted mini wheats. I like honey bunches of oats. Once every 3 or 4 months, I have a craving for Raisin Bran. Let's see what else. I think that's the majority. I pretty much will alternate like between frosted mini wheats and honey bunches of oats. Like I'll have one for a couple weeks, and then once that runs out, then I switch, and then I go back and forth.
Is it the banana honey bunches of oats, though?
No, it's the honey roasted one. I don't know if I've seen banana actually.
I haven't had them in a very long time, so I don't know if they still make it. I assume they do.
Maybe not. What about
But
you?
yeah, I usually go with some kind of egg, like egg sandwich or egg and toast or egg and bacon type thing.
What about Scarlet and Blue says steak and eggs? Are you steak and eggs person? I like them separate. I have not brought myself to having them together though.
I don't even care for steak to begin with all that
That's
much,
right.
though.
That's right. I forgot. Yeah. That was the right. Yes. Scarlet and Blue. You'll have to ask that when if I'm on with Jeff or Daniel. I think Scott eats steak. Yeah. Blake is not a steak guy. All right. Let's see. I'll do one quick scroll to see if we had any baseball stuff or just any questions we may have missed. I think we got to the majority of them. Well, Devin, he's asking about bacon wrap filet mignon. Never had it. It's insane. I have not had it, and I can guarantee you Blake has not had it as well. I don't need to ask him. All right. Yeah, I think. Well, here, we can end with this one. David Ramos wants to know, are the Christmas songs over?
Yeah, I think we're at that point.
Yeah, I think so too. I think once we get to July 2nd, that it's done with, and we're focusing on the new year. All right, yeah. Looks like
one more. I could
Go
throw
ahead,
this
throw it
one
up.
up real quick. Best Korean player in MLB, I believe that would be Shin Soo Choo, formerly with the Indians, now Guardians and Rangers. He had a very good career.
There we go. Hawaiian Kira, thank you for being in here with us tonight. And thank you, everybody else. We got up to, I think, about 2,500 on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. I know that there was a big Sunday night game that was just ending kind of as we were going on. Although the Lions had pulled away, so it wasn't necessarily the nail biter that people were hoping for. Like, that was not an intentional shot to bring up the NFL. I apologize. I just realized that it's been a rough day for you. So, Blake, thank you for joining me tonight and a gritty performance by you after just a tough morning and start to your day. Again, thank you to everybody who has joined us. As a reminder, if you are on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe to our channel, ring the notification bell, hit the like button on this video, all that good stuff. If you're watching it after the fact, we appreciate you. If you're on podcast, please rate, review us, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, wherever else you get it. Again, that's Blake. I'm Matthew. We should be back again with another live show on Tuesday night. That will be probably Jeff and Anthony as we kind of get back into the swing of our normal shows. I know it got a little funky there with the holiday and Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve and all that. But once again, thank you, and we'll see you guys next time.